We are Charmaine and Hui Hua. Um, this is week 2 of our sharing on the ACES platform. We are introducing our book called Bilingual Project Learning, and it's really about the work that we do at Between Two Trees Preschool. Just also as another introduction, ACES is the Association for Early Childhood Educators in Singapore, and ACES has been tremendously quick to respond to our new normal and has been actually sharing a lot of content. The number of views for each update has also been growing and has been very encouraging. And we are very excited to support ACES in this endeavor. Our next speakers after us will be Bingwan and Gayatri, and they will be sharing on their book titled Learning Reflections. So we're very happy to have everyone here with us today. If you watched us last week, you will know that this is really a very casual conversation between two of us. We're actually old friends and we have been colleagues and business partners for a while now. Hui Hua and I have had more than 12 years together, and we've been through ups and downs while we figure out a relationship between curriculum and school management, correct?
Yes.
Hua?
Yes.
Yeah, so please say hello on the Facebook chat page. Just type a quick one just so that we know, and we'll be sure to also respond when we can. We can't actually see you now because we're on Zoom. And please also feel free to share constructive questions. We may not be able to answer all of them, but we know that we also have very wonderful ACES Exco members who are seasoned and extremely knowledgeable and all ready to share. So we're also very, very thankful for that. Yeah, and just a huge thank you to everyone who's watching. Shall we start, Hua?
Yes.
Okay. We've got slides prepared by Hui Hua.
Okay, so but then this has gone a bit missing because my PowerPoint crashed, sorry. So we just talked through it, right? We're just going to be doing a review.
Yeah. Shall I do a review of last week and what we covered?
Yeah.
Okay, so last week we basically did an intro to an introduction to our book, which is the Bilingual Project Learning in a Singapore Preschool. And how we started with the book was we really tried to locate ourselves in Singapore. And we basically, by placing ourselves in Singapore, we also gave a sense of what our education system is like and where early childhood sits within there. And this book that we wrote is also really about celebrating our Singaporean Asian identity and also, you know, exploring bilingualism with project learning, which has really been our experience, you know, in the past 12 years. Yeah, and I guess we've also been highlighting and advocating for project learning by showing how modest we started. You know, we really were a preschool for a very small group of children in an old house with very little space. So I think the reason why we wanted to share the book was also to send out a message to share that bilingual project learning is very possible in a space that is very cramped, in a space that has very limited resources in Singapore. You know, I think when we first started, it was against a backdrop of a lot of preschools really trying to move away from, or actually no, trying to negotiate between activity sheets after activity sheets, or, you know, just a lot of worksheets. So I think that has been a real journey, right? And we continue to advocate for not just project learning, but, you know, really learning through play, learning through unstructured playtime, right, Hua?
Yeah, and it's really a journey with the parents, right? Because there are parents who came in and said that they really like this idea of play, but as they get older, they start to get anxious just because they understand the requirements of primary school. So it's really walking that journey with them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we also have lots of parents who really have, I mean, all parents have the best intentions, right? And when they start with their 18 months old, they're all very committed to play, but somewhere at the N2 stage, then they start getting a bit nervous, right? Because everyone wants to be primary one ready, right? So that's
Yeah.
also, we also talk about values and also our culture, you know, how that is actually, it's not necessarily a weakness, but it's or a strength, but it's really part of our identity, you know, like how we really value academic excellence as well.
Mm.
And I think we also talk about that a bit in the book, where, you know, it's not a right or wrong, it's really what we are about, you know, and where that came from, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so what families are comfortable with, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we hop down to the next slide?
Yeah.
So I think we also touch on what's important in a B2T school, which we spent quite a long time on because we were very conscious about. I think the starting point was that, you know, we really wanted to recognize and acknowledge our values, right? Whether they were Asian values, Confucian values, but really, and I get really digging deep into what we value, right? And I think we shared in a previous slide what these values were, you know, like filial piety, like loving food, like academic excellence, all these different ones that I think many Singaporeans will find, will resonate.
Familiar.
Yeah, they'll find familiar. Um, and then, of course, we also really emphasized the importance of having conversations, not just with between teachers and children, and teachers and parents, you know, but really just also digging deeper into what kinds of conversations we were having. I think we were quite deliberate about being very open concept, right, Hui Hua?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's one thing that we find just really offers so much possibilities, you know, and that we really get to learn from children as well. Yeah.
And another thing that comes to mind is also the treatment of time in our space. I mean, we've always been very inspired by the Reggio Emilia preschools, but what one thing that didn't work for us early on was we could not spend an unlimited amount of time at a particular activity, right? But then on the other extreme, we also knew of a lot of preschools in Singapore who were basically chopping up their time, their schedules into 10 minutes, you know? So yeah, I think treatment of time was is a big one. Hey, you know, we've just got a comment about how we can make the PowerPoint like a slide. Is that something you can't do?
I don't want to because it is crashing because this file has a lot of photos, so it crashes every time I try to do that, which is why
Yeah,
we've left it this way.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you really want to see the book, please buy a copy. We've got lots of nice images in there. Yeah. Okay, so back to it. What's important in a B2T preschool? I think a huge part also is the food culture and celebrations, right? We make that a big part. And it's not just about enjoying food, you know, but it's really also looking at how a particular dish comes about, or also how the children eat their food, you know. Those are all important things that come under that category, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's important for us. Just as a quick introduction, all our work has been at Between Two Trees Preschool. We've kind of grown from place to place. We started off in Bukit Timah near Newton Circus, and that was a really small space for 25 children. We had a really lovely landlord who was very supportive and sent her child to, and you know, we just really grew from there. And now we're located at Holland. So we have two locations. One is at Holland Road and one is at Clarke Quay. So you want to introduce a little bit on Holland Road before I go into Clarke Quay?
We moved to Holland Road in 2013. It is a black and white house. Actually, you can see it here. It is this house precisely. And you may notice that there are children sitting at the gate. So they're actually sitting there and making a drawing of the school itself, because that's a conversation that we were having about school. So they decided to represent it through their own drawing. It's a lovely house, what many families would like to call a home away from home, because it's really cozy, and that's immediately what they would love. And what we really appreciated about the space, and why we really moved to this house, is because it has a lot more outdoor space. So like a garden for the children to run in, a playground, and at the side we can have our sand play and also water play, and a garden, an edible garden at the back. Yeah, so you will see that it's actually mostly residential, right? Because it's along Holland Road and 6th Avenue. But what's lovely still is, we have a supermarket right opposite the road. And you will see later on how that became a project for the children. And apart from that, there's also Henry Park Primary School. So we were very lucky to get to have the invitation to visit the school 1 year for our K2s, and that was a huge experience for them, because they were having an orientation by the primary 2s or 3s as the ambassadors of school. And that was so timely, because and we really planned for that, because we had a graduation project, and part of that really included the whole conversation about moving to a big school. So it's lovely that way. But the idea is we often place ourselves, when we go to a place, we place ourselves on a map, and we really like to see what's around and how we can connect with the community. So Shah, you want to talk about Clarke Quay?
Yeah, so now we have Clarke Quay has just opened, a school space in Clarke Quay has just opened, and that is actually quite exciting, because well, the team is the teachers are actually building it from scratch, right? And we now have this new location that's right steeped in the location is steeped in Singapore history, so it's next to the Singapore River, and the project possibilities are really quite endless. So there's actually like a beautiful old mosque around next to it. There's an Indian classical troupe next to it. There's the river. There's also Fort Canning and Chinatown. So really, we're quite excited about this. And also, the reason why we're sharing about the location is because that's also another key point in the book, which is it's really important where where the school is located, right? Because that really forms your community. And it really is the space for the teachers and the curriculum planner to go, is this possible? Is that possible? Where's home? Where's close to home for the children, and so on and so forth. So that's why we're spending a little bit of time also just sharing where Between Two Trees preschool is.
And you see, like a big part of our identity is being connected to nature. So I mean, obviously in a space like Clarke Quay, it's kind of like a concrete jungle, right? Which is then why, again, like going back to the map, it's so important for us to look for all these green spaces around, what we can visit regularly, we can tap on, or even in our very first school, this little one, right? Botanic Gardens was a huge thing for us. Like we would make a visit, like monthly, to so that the children still get the chance to run around, and play and just be free and be in touch with nature.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess now we're really trying to get into the book, right? We did all that introduction also to just provide some context. That's what we always do before we start going into the material. So just a shout out also, we have to acknowledge that for bilingual project learning, we've been hugely inspired by the project approach. And when we wrote this book, we actually also wrote to Dr. Sylvia Chart. So she was also wonderfully supportive in this when the book came out, and she was very helpful with her comments. So likewise, we want to acknowledge her. On the learning cycle for projects, I mean, that is really key for every single project. You'll see on the right, there are actually three stages that we look at, and we can go repeatedly. It's not a linear process, but the first stage is a provocation, and then we go into investigation and reflection. So the cycle may seem quite familiar to anyone who is exposed to project-based learning, the project approach, or any form of project learning, even design thinking, right? Because it's also a cycle of finding more information, learning, investigating, and then representing it by making or expressing. So that's really what we do when we carry out projects with young children. And at the bottom, you'll see that how we've added value to our process is that we haven't just stayed at the provocation stage. As a means of accountability, we have learning standards and evaluation, because initially when we started, not all parents were that supportive, or they were not that invested in the idea of project learning. And it was only through showing the learning standards and the evaluation journals where we could actually walk through the journey with them and show and actually evidence learning, right? So it's not just for the parents. I think for the teachers as well, it's been a real learning journey, right, Hua?
Yeah, and I think it's also more of that, I mean, whether it's parents or the teachers that came on board, like they're really interested, right? Because it sounds so interesting, but because it was so new to us too, it was always like, but are my children really learning, and can they still be ready?
Are they ready?
Yeah, like it's so fun, I hear them, it's so fun, but will they be ready? Are they really spending their time meaningfully? And so these learning standards and the evaluation, the documents really help. And it is also a journey in itself, how we try to document, right? And we're really trying to get away from just boxes, where we tick like can do, cannot do.
Lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at this learning cycle, the B2T way, it also indicates like the different roles in a project. I mean, this is very much Reggio inspired in a sense, right? Because we have the teachers who are the ones who are carrying out that three-stage cycle, but you've also got a curriculum person who's looking at learning standards and evaluation. And then you've got someone like yourself, Hua, who is the visual, like the artist, the school artist, who is, that is also a crucial way of thinking about projects where it's a form of visual arts is really a way of like enjoying learning through beauty, right?
Yeah, and that's what we get so excited about, and it's become really like a huge identity in itself, right? In our work, a feature. Can I go on to share?
I think maybe can we also say it, I mean, just one point also which I want to say, when we consider different materials for visual arts, it's not so much like you're reaching for that product, right? It's that you're using the materials during the process, right? To explore with the children. So it's not to create a thing of beauty, but it is the beauty of it is in the process, right?
Yeah. Or it can, and it can be both, because the climate had always been that it is working towards a product, and we wanted to really highlight the process as well. So then that really came through in how we document and how we communicate with parents, right? I mean, we're not just handing over something and saying, there, she did a good piece of work, but it was really, again, like focusing on the story behind it, or celebrating like a certain element, that a quality of the child that the teacher would have observed. Yeah. One thing to highlight too before we move on is, if you see these tiny little arrows between, say for example, provoke and investigate and reflect, right? It's because through our practice, we also realize that, it's not just one way that it goes provoke to investigate and then reflect right away. Sometimes we go back to learning something new, right? And then we find the teachers would then find a way to or set up like another provocation to provoke more questions or investigation. Yeah. just the idea.
Mm.
Okay.
So maybe we can go on to what we use for projects.
Yeah. So we call them basic elements, and this is a list of all the different elements that we love to include in our work. You know, drawing and literacy, paint, dough, clay, sand, water, blocks, drama, other materials such as wire, or they could be fabric as well, yarn that we didn't write down, just a variety, and also food, always food. Okay, so I'll just go down the list just a little bit more in depth. Like literacy, you will see that our images of children engage in literacy experiences here. It's not really just paper and pen and words, but you see that they are referring to books and they're making their drawings, right? They have toys around them. They're using stamps, and all this we find it becomes a really rich experience in learning language. Is more holistic as well, right? So we look at signs, we look at titles, we look at signages, we look at word cards, right? It's all different ways of how we are communicating. And of course, we are also looking at different languages like English and Chinese language, right? And even Singlish, because some kids would bring Singlish with that, but the amazing thing is the children know how to code switch as well, like when they use it for fun, or when they are learning something, and they would speak the proper English that they're required to. So that we find
Or
is
encouraged lah. Yeah.
Okay, you have anything to add for literacy, Miss Literacy?
No, I don't, but I actually feel like we have so many materials and we normally would cover them over days, right? And we're trying to cover them in 20 minutes. So
Okay.
yeah, and also we just had some comments coming in about how in Heartland preschools there are so many areas, exciting possibilities for projects, right? Just jumping to that, I think Dr. Chen just mentioned hawker centers, mama shop, playgrounds. When we actually tried to get ourselves in a void deck, and we were not successful, sadly, because of various reasons, we were so excited about not just the hawker center, right? We were excited about the trash collection, because that was a huge thing, right? We had so many different ideas for projects, right? Not just we had wet markets, we had the police post, we had the post office. It was like everything was within a stone's throw, right? Just even exploring like the confectionery shops, or the shops that are quickly disappearing, or even the provision shop, like any kind of shop, right? You can find in like a heartland, and I think we were so excited about that, right, Hua?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think our children did try going to the wet market to buy materials before. I mean, at
Yeah.
like vegetables before as well. But off the top of my head, I can't remember which project it is related to now.
And I think we were also talking about, I mean, we've had exposure to cobblers and all, but we've also had, we wanted to look at the bus station, the bus terminal, right?
They went. There was a project on
Right.
buses, and
Yeah.
we actually had a trip to the bus interchange. And
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just kind of advocating for like all these preschools in like who have all these different shops near them.
yeah,
That is just incredible. It's an incredible resource, even as the simplest block, just having that, being able to explore the lift, being able to explore like the car park system. There is always something that children can get engaged with on a very authentic level, right?
Yeah, or just looking at the block itself, like the number of levels they can go to, the type of windows, doors, like
Mhm.
shapes, sizes. So exciting.
Sorry, we better keep on track. But yes, that was a really nice one. We get very excited by all the project possibilities.
Yeah. I think I have 5 more minutes to go through a lot. So I'll
Okay.
just
Sorry.
yeah. Okay, we have paint. And you know what's very consistent for us from 18 months to 6 years old is in every classroom there is at least 1 or 2 easels in, and painting is always made available for the children to express themselves. Sometimes it's free painting, sometimes it's a provocation painting. What we mean by a provocation painting is, for example, in the project, they are it's on eggplants and chilies, right? So the teacher might have placed a real eggplant that we plucked from the garden on a stool next to the easel, and that's an invitation for a child to look at a 3D object and do a painting. Yeah.
Before you go ahead, can I just say really quickly as well, like
Yep.
just for everyone to observe the kind of painting that an 18-month-old does and the kind of painting that a 5 to 6-year-old does. The level of detail is so different, right? And that's something that we value, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have dough and clay. And again, I should establish that there are several materials that we have in every classroom, like paint, like dough and blocks, right? These are consistent elements that we have in each class from 18 months to 6 years old. And we think that's exciting because that's really letting a child, that's really open-ended, and the children then can have the opportunity to explore it in their own time, their own way, and we talk about the continuum of creativity, right? Or just learning. It's really from the exploration before they get to a stage where they feel more familiar, and then they start to experiment with what they can do with it. And what we want at the end of that continuum is really the creation, their ability to create things, and with their own ideas. So that's really what we are putting out there as an invitation for. And you would see that all these shapes that they're making is really organic. It's very authentic, and that's what we really want to appreciate. So for the older children, we get them exposed to materials that are a bit harder and different, like terracotta clay, or just regular paper clay. But for the younger ones, it's something that is softer and easier. And so very often, consistently, the teachers are always making Play-Doh, homemade Play-Doh. Okay, we have blocks. Shah?
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that we have blocks and, sorry, my daughter is here. So we have blocks and water. Those are the two materials that are actually very physical, science based, right? So, for something like blocks, we know for a fact that, children are very interested in always building up, same as adults actually. So they like to build tall things like buildings and towers. And they also like building fences, in and out, like different kinds of enclosures. And this in and out thing is really a huge concept, right, for young children to grasp, and the science learning is also very rich here, because like for blocks, you're learning about gravity, you're learning about tension, compression, and then you're learning about things like design, stability, balance, and characteristics like shape and size and different kinds of building materials. So there's always a lot of science learning here. And then for water, we do water outside, right? And can I get the next slide?
Where is our water? Water is
And when you see water, again, they're learning about flowing, dropping, sinking, floating. Water will flow down unless it's stopped. Water takes the shape of its container. Air makes bubbles in water. Ice melts to become water. So exploring water is very engaging. And you see the way they explore with water, it also changes within across age groups. Same with blocks, right? So yeah, that was my thing about water and blocks.
And same with sand, it's another very sensorial material that our children get to explore weekly, on good days for good weeks when it's not raining. You see this, they are digging in with all different materials. So from week to week, the materials would change, whether it's rakes or stones or toy animal or vehicles or sticks, right? Yeah, or a measuring cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're wondering, sorry?
Because it's a bit, I'm wondering whether you want to play that short video before we dive into the projects.
Yeah, so this one, one of the last few things to talk about is there's also drama. So I'll just play this very short video.
I hope everyone can see it.
There you go. So this is them in a bakery project, right? And what the teacher has done is to really set up a cafe, where they're buying and selling and making bread and cookies. So you see the two boys, right? One is serving the other and counting the number of cookies that's on the menu and what he wants to serve. And you see that we have materials there for them to really indicate as well, right? Other than playing, they're also involved in writing and counting, and they're really taking on the different roles, which makes it so exciting for them. Okay. Here we put keeping the door open, and it's really the idea of just being trying to think in a different way sometimes, apart from even just the basic materials we have. Like how can we represent that subject that we're talking about? So in this case, we had a project on insects, and thinking about how insects are really light and small. We decided to introduce a wire to the K children. And of course, it is dependent on age as well, right? Like the K children, they have a lot, much better motor skills. So that's something that they could really work on. And they were so excited about it because it's twisting out a lot of different shapes and really working at being very determined to create something that they have thought about or draw. So it's the experience of going from 2D to 3D, like something that a flat little ant that they now try to make crawling with the legs up, right? Okay, so I mean, in summary, we're really talking about using all these different materials, right? Talk about going across mediums and going across days, because this is a series to show how in a ocean project, this child really wanted to learn how to draw a seahorse, right? And we had a conversation on how to draw it, how we really observed the shape of it and how she's tried it on many different occasions, right? And she eventually did a watercolor painting poster of her favorite seahorses. So there's a point about really encouraging the child to work towards mastery and creativity. Shah, do you have anything to add to that? Can't hear you.
Yeah, we should start on the project now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think last week someone was asking whether 18 months can be involved in project learning, and our answer is a resounding yes, right? And that's precisely what the children in our schools have been doing from 18 months all the way to 6 years old. So in our book, we chose 10 different projects, and we've highlighted a few for each age group. So today we're going to share one, just very briefly, I mean, with you, what the 18 months to 2 years old worked on. And there's a project on zoo, and this is exciting. I mean, it's one of the very common conversations that they would have, right, coming to school, like whether it's their comfort toy that they have had with them that is so important at separation, or it's an Eric Carle book that they have read before. Eric Carle is a very familiar author to many toddlers. So it always comes up, or the songs. So this group decided to embark on the project because the toddlers were very fascinated by the hand puppets in the class, and especially fierce animals like lion and crocodile. Yeah. So this is a map of what the big idea was. It was really about the songs, about family, the science involved, the animals, and really the idea of going to the zoo, like the conversation of, yeah, you know, you've been to the zoo and what the animals that we have seen. So let's start with the first stage, which is the provocation stage. So how the teacher set up the provocation for more conversation is to really have all these puppets available, and to start conversations with them during free play, like, hi, you know, this is Charlie the crocodile, I like to swim, what about you? So really inviting our children to also share, you know, what they would like to be, and to play with the puppets, really like dramatic play, right? Going on to investigation, we invited the zookeeper to come into our space. There's a special program that the Singapore Zoo provides, you know, for schools. So it's called a Zoo Goes to School program, and we invited Dr. Woos to come over, and they actually brought animal specimens for the children, and it was so exciting for them because it's really like touching like a real life animal, as well as some of the embalmed animals out there. Okay. And then we had, as part of the investigation, we also had a field trip. And for the toddlers, they are always accompanied by a parent or a guardian when we go for a trip. But how we also try to make it fun is to think of different experiences that can be included in the trip. So it's like okay, you know, remember to take some photos of your favorite animals because we're going on this trail. And later on, the family, the dad or the mom may then send the photos to the teacher, and that's something that they can print and put in the classroom. So it then invites this ongoing conversation while they have this project. Right. For this project particularly, what the teachers did too is to use the photos and the drawings of the school trip to create a song book called Going to the Zoo. So I think many of you would be familiar with the song, right? Like, we're going to the zoo, zoo, zoo. What about you, you, you? So then we got the different favorite animals of every child in the songbook. So eventually every family had their own songbook, you know, of different animals that they like. That's Charmaine's daughter, by the way, Ray Ray, who was a toddler when they had this project. She's now 7.
Primary 1.
Yeah, primary 1. Okay, and that reflection stage is really for us to again, like, just take stock of like what images or what experiences that have really captivated them. So what can they show, you know, through their way of expression, what animals mean to them, you know, or what a roar means to them. This is outdoor painting that's been put up. So what the teachers did was to just lay huge pieces of easel paper on a wall next to the trites area. And apart from them having their trites time, is like the children who are interested can come and draw, help paint a giant mural of a giraffe. So this is interesting because a giraffe is, they had to talk about how high it can be. So then you see this girl is actually standing on a stool, trying to reach out, you know, to paint like the long neck of the giraffe. So there is this bodily experience too of expressing like what a tall animal is. So these are the different experiences that we talk about and try to think of. Okay. And what we've basically done in this book is to share in a systematic way, like you would see, right? Like the value or the skill that we are trying to encourage, you know, and then what materials we use, and we list down the process so that it becomes something that is easy for a parent or like a teacher who is new in project work to try out. Or another way of representing an animal that they have learned about is through collage, you know. So here we're talking about shapes and layers, and it's about making a collage of a zebra. So after looking and talking about the zebra that they have seen before, and then now they're seeing it on a poster, how do they stick their own? And you see this boy, he's chosen like black strips to stick this way to them. And the idea is that it's okay because that's his representation and that's how he sees it. Okay, so in summary, again, we have a summary of all the different questions we can ask in a project. And here are two different conversation threads. One is on elephant and giraffe, and the other one is we're going to the zoo song. So last week we went through this ladder, right? At the bottom where is the easiest skill, right to the top where they're going for creation of their own idea. So at the bottom is what does a giraffe eat? So that's a child remembering, you know, from stories or from observing at the zoo, right? And then there's a teacher asking, is a giraffe as tall as a double-decker bus or taller or shorter, right? And then how does a giraffe move? Why does a giraffe have a long neck? Okay, can a giraffe live in your home? So then that takes a higher thinking skills, right? Because they have to think about their home, how high, how big their home is, and whether a giraffe can fit in there, right? And then painting a life-size giraffe. Okay. So reflecting on this project, looking at sets of possibilities is really creating project cards based on the toddler's vocabulary, right? And this is actually what we do for every project. And it's always in 2 languages, and they're introduced in 2 languages. Okay. And then the other thing is really thinking about bilingual songs, like other than the going to the zoo songs, what are all the other songs we can introduce and display in their environment for the children, so that there are more songs that they can sing other than going to the zoo. Okay.
Yes.
Good for time.
You. Yeah. We have a question. What is the role of a different language teacher in a bilingual project? So because we're bilingual in the sense we do English and Chinese, right? That's actually a really interesting question, because we've always emphasized that the Chinese teacher and the English teacher do the same things. So in terms of curriculum planning, in terms of documentation, in terms of facilitating the project, the Chinese teacher does the same as the English teacher, only in Chinese. So as far as possible, the planners and the documentation guides, those are all bilingual. They're set out in English and Chinese so that it becomes it's a 50-50 thing. It doesn't, the language is interchangeable, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So for example, for 1 week, it's this teacher that's facilitating the puppet play, for example. If it happens, because there are 2 teachers, English and Chinese, right? If this week it is the English teacher that is facilitating the role play in that classroom, then next week you will be the Chinese teacher, right? So there's really no change in the activity. It's just a switch over to the language, right?
Yeah, so it really, I mean, just to answer that question, the role that the different language teacher plays is the same role as the English teacher, as far as possible. There are some things that need to be translated. And so you will find that, I mean, especially in B2T, the teachers are co-teachers, right? So it's crucial for them to build a relationship with each other. And we've seen like some of them, they're really great partners, right? They've become really great partners. And then we've seen others that, I mean, where the professional relationship doesn't really take off, right? For various reasons, right? So it's not always a simple solution. It is pretty complicated and dynamic. You know, it's the same with getting to know your co-teacher is the same as getting to know the children getting to know one another, you know.
But I think when we were starting off, we really had to emphasize this very strong point that they are equals, because I think maybe based on experience or some schools, they are experience from other schools, right? They feel like English teacher is the main teacher. You know, I'm only a Chinese teacher, right? And we've really got to say like, no, you know, you are equals in your own right, you know, and we want to appreciate this language as much as the other one. And how do we really make it equal that way?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, so we have a couple of questions about how does the English teacher speak in Chinese and does the Chinese teacher speak in English? And then I think we've got another question. Is it important for the English teacher to speak only English? And I mean, for me personally, I think, I mean, the teacher speaks in the language that the teacher is qualified to speak and teach in, right? And I am quite particular about that. You are too, right, Hua?
Yeah, that's why we're not giving this talk in Mandarin, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very tough. Dr. Chen just said languages are caught, not taught. I like that.
Yeah. But just going back to the part about English, teachers speaking English and only English, right? I think there are exceptions also. Say, for example, if there's a new child in the classroom, you know, this is a real situation. I mean, especially
going back to care.
Yeah, especially like in the toddler class, right? Say if the child only understands English and the teacher is really trying to comfort, and they know that there's certain words that the family has already said that would comfort the child or the child understand, then in that case, you know, we find that it is okay that the Chinese teacher is speaking in Mandarin. Yeah.
So the teachers also hold they have the discretion to decide what language they speak in, but they really know what the intention is, right? And the intention is to be having the children catch the language right. I mean, right is very subjective, but I think we also make it clear that, you know, if we don't really want a Chinese teacher to be speaking English all day, that is really not the intention, you know. But if something needs to be translated, if a child needs to be soothed, or, you know, to have that care element come in, then of course that can be done. But when in the classroom, the English teacher speaks English, the Chinese teacher speaks Chinese.
Yeah. And we've had, I mean, it's a very valid question, because we've had to step in and tell some teachers before, like, you know, please stick to your language, because
yes. Okay, so we did a quick time check. We only have 12 minutes left, so we have to zoom through the supermarket project.
So supermarket sweep. There you go.
Okay, so that's me now. Everyone, behold this beautiful picture of a supermarket. So basically, this is a picture of a supermarket where they actually built their own supermarket. I mentioned last week that there have been different iterations of a supermarket project. In one year, they really did barcodes, right? In another year, they actually built a trolley. So as we all know, we all are drooling over the idea of a trolley, because the children got to encounter physics and wheels and, you know, different kinds of materials that they don't normally get to make, right? So we really got to explore that. But in the one that we covered in the book, the children got to build a real supermarket. And you saw earlier there was a web that showed the different ideas. The really big idea was the whole thing about being in the real world, about having money. They were really excited about buying and selling their food. And then there were so many different ideas that I think in the process of in the process of doing the project and how they investigated, they also got to visit a supermarket and then finally build a supermarket, right?
Mm.
So I think it's all started out with conversations. They started really simple buying and selling. I mean, the tables became counters, right? Where they started bagging food, bagging things, and just really acting out what they see in real life in their home. So this is super. We love supermarket project because it's something that can be translated in your home space, in home conversations, brought over to home conversations. So it's always very rich that every child has something to contribute because they've all gone shopping with their family members, right? And so at stage 2, when they're investigating, you can see that they're busy making their things to set up the supermarket. But the key and the highlight of it was also they visited the supermarket not once and more than once, right? They went back earlier on in the project, and then they went back later on in the project.
Yeah.
And both for different reasons, right, Hua?
Yeah. First, really to explore, but later on, I mean, it was also then when they had a celebration at the end, is picking up healthy food, because there was also a conversation about healthy food and junk food, right? That you can find in the supermarket.
Yeah. And so then at the reflection stage, then they also they went shopping, they brought their own recycled bags, they brought the money and everything. But then what they also did was they had a feast, right? They did have a feast at the end, right?
Yeah. And this is actually a drawing of their experience. Instead of putting a real photo, we wanted to also show like part of their experience that came out of it was also them reflecting, and they were recalling their picnic experience. So that's them drawing out all the food that they bought and all their friends sitting around.
Yeah, so how we cover projects in the book is also we have all these different projects that we've done, and we also take them, we basically show what we did in each stage, but it's not fixed, we have also got tips on how we did it, why we do certain things, but the ideas are also that it's really for an educator, be it a teacher or a parent, they can easily do it at home as well once they're kind of aware of the different stages of learning. So I think there's one last thing on the ladder. So the ladder is also, I think we mentioned the ladder earlier. The ladder is crucial for us because the kind of questions that we are formulating has its place on the ladder. If you're familiar with structured worksheets, it's always about applying. It's very, very focused on applying knowledge, right? But you can see that only takes you 3 rungs up the ladder. It really, for us, the highest expression of skill acquisition is creation, right? That is for us that mastery. So I mean, same as what Hui Hua did earlier, a question like, can you name some fruits and vegetables you see in the supermarket? That's way down in the ladder because that's memory recall. But when we ask questions like, why is it important to look out for the expiry date of items you buy from the supermarket? That's a very different kind of question already. So these are the things that we'll be looking at next week. But we just thought it might be good to touch on them here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think let's do a quick time check. We have 7 more minutes. We also, I guess that's pretty much it. I think maybe we should summarize. Do we have any questions from anyone? Okay, look, there's a question. If it is the switching of language, then one of the project teacher's role is to provide translation. Will the Chinese or English teacher be able to contribute contents to the project?
I don't understand.
If it's the switching of language, then one of the project teacher's role is to provide translation. Will the Chinese or English teacher be able to contribute contents to the project? So I'm not really sure what this is asking, but if I guess right, it means what if the Chinese or English teacher, are they able to contribute if the language is different? Is it? So my answer would be yes, because we encourage conversations, and actually, they don't work singly, they work together. So it's as simple as, asking the other person, copying and pasting something and getting it translated. For different learners, how to do projects. Thanks, Huitia. So I think that the intention of this question is really, when you've got learners who are different types of learners. You've got the kinesthetic learners, you've got the auditory learners. Different children learn differently. How do you do projects, right? Hey, Hua, you want to take a stab at this one?
The teachers will usually brainstorm, and I mean, you saw the variety of basic elements that we have, right? So it's never like a singular experience, like going into a project. I would say, like, when you enter the classroom during that project hour, usually within the day, the project is like an hour long, right? There's painting setup, there's role play setup, there is the provocation table where maybe they are really looking close at something with a magnifying glass and studying it, right? There are so many different ways, and different learners will gravitate toward what they are interested in.
And I think the most crucial thing that we're trying to say also is that we are guided by the children, right?
Yeah.
By their interests, and their interests are kind of manifest how they learn, right? So just the same way as the supermarkets different years turn out different kinds of supermarket projects, the focus area is different according to the children's interests.
Yeah, so a big part of that conversation, because the teachers and the school artists, we have like weekly meetings, I mean, the important question is always for us is, what did the children ask? It's not like, okay, they're interested in supermarket, what do we teach? But okay, what did the children ask, or what did they say? And that's like our hint to navigating, like how we go about this project. So and certain teachers would say, oh, but I've got this tool who is really very much active. Then we would deliberately think like, okay, then during outdoor time, can something be set up such that they can be encouraged to still explore the project in that way.
Yeah. Okay, I think oh wait, hang on, there's one more. Any projects that you can recommend to do at home? I think we will write that on the Facebook chat, but thank you for asking that.
Oh, and then we have Ling Qi, right, who's saying,
we have 3 more minutes though.
The teachers actually don't translate, which is a very good point.
Ko Hui Hua, we have 3 more minutes.
She's calling my full name, so it means she's serious.
Okay. I'm serious. 3 more minutes, yes. But Dr. Chen, the last one is Dr. Chen, project learning offers a wide choice for children to choose what suits them. Indeed.
Well said. Very well said. Yes, a wide spread of buffet.
Yes. Okay. So
please summarize.
Let's just do a quick summary. We basically we did a quick review of what bilingual project learning is for us. Today we went a bit deeper into what goes on in a B2T school, what's important. We pointed out values. We also shared about where our schools are located. We shared about the basic elements, meaning the open-ended materials that we use. And then we actually went into 2 projects, which is the zoo for the younger ones and the supermarket for the older ones. Next week, we are going to be covering asking different kinds of questions. So it's really that ladder again, based on the Bloom's taxonomy, and really in relation to knowledge building, right? So thank you, everyone. We are going to sign off in about a minute, but please join us again next week. It's going to be our last week, and we'll be asking good questions.
Please ask good questions too.
Yeah, please ask good questions, and we'll be very happy to share whatever we can. Alrighty.
Okay.
So thank you. See you in the same time, same place.